This is step 2 content, the drag and drop editor. And in this training session, we'll just be going over the different elements that are available to you in the Build and Styles tab, your toolbar, and also testing and utilities. And if you want to learn more about any of the specific elements over here, we do have some other videos that go into depth how to use some of these tools in more advanced ways. So the drag and drop editor can really be used even if you're just creating a simple letter style email, but it can also be very advanced, integrating with e-commerce sites, linking to PayPal, inserting external dynamic content from an API, or even including your RSS feed. So we'll just go through the basic options that you have. And if you want to explore more, you can also. All right, so this is a campaign created from a free template that exists in everybody's account. And I also have a campaign set up. Sorry, let me flip over. But this is just what a blank campaign looks like if you were just to create one from scratch. Okay, so it basically would work just by dragging over a container or a column to start with. And you would just go from here building what you need to. A text, maybe then you want to insert your hero image or your logo, and so forth. So it's not as scary or intimidating as you might think to set up a campaign from scratch. But for this training purposes, I'm going to go through this pre-built campaign just to show you what all these options look like. Okay, so in your Build tab, you have these elements, and they're broken out by content, layout, and tools. So text, these are what they sound like. So this is a text element. You have image and text. Those are these blocks where you have text on one side and image on another. It's just preset for you. You have to set some of your style background colors to match, but it does that for you. You can create that by scratch by just dragging over a container column, setting it at 2, and then dropping an image on one side and text on the other, so it works the same way. And you have buttons. So these are all example of buttons. If you drag a button over, you'll see. You then have the ability to add a link and style it. You can change the color. Type right in the code for that color. Change the alignment of the button and the space that it's in. Change the padding, the space that's around the text. So for example, to show here. Here we go. Made it a lot taller, but that looks awful. And you can set a minimum width too, as the template's responsive, how small that button can be on a small screen. So with any element that you drag over here, whether it's in content, layout, or tools, you have this ability to duplicate any block or element. You can remove it with the red X, and you can also drag it around. So just like I was dragging things from the left here and dropping it into the editing screen, you can also drag them and move them around. So you'll see the line changes. The thick blue line shows you where it'll go if I let go, and the dotted lines show you where the other places you could put this element. Okay, so the button, that was these. If you want to change the link, so clicking on the text within the button brings up your options. You click into the URL here to then bring up the add a link window where you can enter in a link. And then you have link groups and link naming. So I've entered in the URL of my video. And then two options you have. You don't have to do this. This is not required, but it's good for reporting. In this case, my YouTube link is just a bunch of characters, letters. There's no way for me to identify which video this is, and so that's what the link name allows me to do. I know that's my piping techniques video, so I can give it that name. Groups allows you to categorize your links in a more of a hierarchical kind of a sense. So you have this is a video, so I made a video group, and it's about cupcakes, so I made a cupcake group. So then reporting, I could look at who are all my contacts clicking on cupcake links? Who are all my contacts clicking on pie related links? And then in the future, I could start segmenting on that information and just send them cupcake themed emails or pie themed emails, whatever makes sense and would be effective as a targeted campaign. So that's just one example, one example of one kind of link. Okay, so back in the build tab, we have the PayPal button. So I've used the PayPal button for this, kind of made my own promotion here where people could buy cookies. So if you click on your PayPal button, it brings up your account information that you can enter. That allows to send back the right information to PayPal and buy the correct thing. You can change this to USD. Sorry, it's way off the bottom of the screen. Set a price. Taxes, shipping, etc. So it allows you to set up your PayPal information. Video. So I included a video in my email, this one up here. You just drag, that's how I set it up, just by dragging this over, and then to enter the link, you click on it, and you can enter the YouTube link right there. So I had already done that with this video. I just entered this. So the cool thing about this, if I do it again, here I'll copy this. The neat thing about the video tool is that you don't have to go select the image. It'll find the image for you. So just by putting in the YouTube link, it recognizes the video, this image, and pops it in for you. You can change it if you don't like it, but you do have to then screenshot your video or upload an image that you already have that represents the video well, and do a manual workaround, which is how we used to do links to videos in the past, before the video tool. So I'm going to remove this extra one. And then this button also just linked to my YouTube video as well. Or it's not my YouTube video, the example that I'm using. And then over here on the left, so then more options you have are columns, spacers. This is an example of a spacer. If you click on it, you do get some spacer heights that you can change, and you can do it specific, the exact pixels you want. And below that, we have a few more tools. You have an RSS feed tool. If your RSS is set up, you just enter in the URL, and then it'll pull in the most recent items, the number of items that you've specified, and this is the call to action for each, but you can change it and customize it here. Or the title can be used as the call to action. In addition, there's sharing and social links. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so at the top of my email, I have social links. So the difference here, if you click on these and you go to add or remove social links, so these are the social links that point to my company's social pages where people can follow. You can see I have Open Moves here. So these are my Open Moves accounts. At the bottom of my email, I have the share links. So back here, that's how this is set up. And you click in here, the space, you get to choose which ones you want to share to. So this allows your contacts to take this email. Sorry, I'm going to remove this. These buttons allow your contacts to share this email on their social media sites. So I have share here just to clarify to my readers that these are the share buttons. Dynamic content. I pulled in an example of dynamic content here. And what you do is you bring over this container, and then you have to set up rules. And the neat thing is it looks to your contacts data to define those rules. And so in this instance, I'm pretending that I have a local bake shop in Boston. So for my folks in Boston, I'm offering them a 10% off for in-store orders. But if people aren't in Boston, they get to order some cookies online that I'll ship to them. And then there is a default that you have to define also. In my case, I'm just leaving it blank, so nothing will come up. But that's just a catch-all for a data issue, right? So either people are going to have Boston in their city field, or they're not going to have Boston. So look at one or the other. And to define that, so when you click New Variation, you would just give it a name. So I was calling it either Boston or not Boston. And then I was finding my city data field and defining Boston or not equal to Boston. And that's how both of those were set up. So I had to do one each. And then I also had to populate the content. And you build it just the way you build your email. So basically what this does is I can show you, I went into my contact data. Yes, I want to save this. And I changed my city to Boston. So if I were to preview myself, what this email will look like if it was sent to me, go to this personalization here. Yep, that's me. Preview. And there it is. So my data says that I live in Boston, so it pulled in, it knows I'm local. You can also use the dynamic content preview if you don't have a contact that you can look at for the personalization. So not Boston looks like ordering cookies online. So that's just an example, one example how dynamic content can be used. So similarly, external dynamic content works pretty much the same way, except you're not setting it up in your email. The content's coming from an API integration into your account. So your developers would help set this up for you. This is definitely advanced, and we can address this in a separate training session or even a one-on-one conversation with support. But that option is there as well. So my building blocks, the difference between my building blocks and building blocks is that you can start saving some of these sections to your account, and you can see there's a lot of pre-saved blocks in here. This little note just says that the templates do get updated over time. So if you've been saving blocks that then become outdated with the template version that you're using, it'll hide them so that you don't get into problems with technical issues with your template. But for instance, let's say I want to save this dynamic content piece. You just grab it, and once you see drop blocks here, you let go. You're going to give it a name. So maybe I'll say dynamic content, Boston offer, save. And here it is. So that just means if this gets removed from my campaign, and maybe there's one campaign I don't want to make this offer, but I do want to make it from time to time, you can just bring it back. So you can save portions of your campaign in your building blocks, in your My Building Blocks area. You can create folders, properties. Just allows you to change some of the settings of the block. And then we have images. So images is pretty straightforward. The plus sign allows you to just straight browse for your file and import it. So I imported this image earlier. This is just a stock photo. So now I'll have two of them in the account eventually. Or maybe it already recognized it, so it won't import it. Same file name. But you can also add folders if you go to manage. So you can start doing folders. This account is widely used, so we have lots of folders. And you can also edit images. This image manager may be familiar to you. It's a third-party image editing tool. There are a lot of platforms that offer the same one. So, but the ones that I think most people in email use are orientation, cropping, and resizing. The other ones, you can put text over your images with this one. The other ones are kind of fun options you have to change. But I could crop this if I wanted to. For example, you can even type the dimensions right in and then drag it. So it's pretty useful. You can also just resize it. I know that the full width of my email is, I think, 660, so it'll never be wider than that, so I could bring it down if I wanted to. And hit save that, and so now I have my smaller, lighter image that I could use in place of that one, for example. Okay, and then over in styles, this is how the background color is set. Background, you can change the colors. You can click into here, my colors, you can save them. It's recognizing which ones have been used so far in this template. You can type a 6-digit color code right in there. And then you just move the selection to change where you want that background color to go. You can pre-select a color theme. You can add borders and padding. So at the bottom here, I made just a little quick example of a cell that or an element that has a border around it. This kind of works like Excel. Basically, you can select the color, you can select the style, the weight of that line, and then you just, once you preset these, then you just click in here to draw your border around that part that you have selected. And then padding is the space within an element or a container block. So maybe I want this to be more padding. Oops, it didn't take on the right side. Here we go. So that added more space inside. Display options. This is pretty neat. So sometimes this is useful. A good example, I'm sorry I didn't have this preset up. You can actually prevent some sections from showing up on desktop and some sections from showing up on mobile, and then or tell it to show up on all devices. So what this does is that this is a responsive template. As the screen size gets smaller, your template will start readjusting the layout so that it optimizes itself on smaller width screens. So in that case, if this were on a smaller screen, these columns would stack. And so knowing that, you know, the smaller screens is a different experience, you can start having different containers that show up desktop versus mobile depending on how it looks. And so you can experiment with that. So basically, if you had two versions of your logo, maybe I had one where my logo here was on the left side and I had a bunch of navigation links. That's great for desktop, but maybe not so much on mobile. Maybe on mobile, I just want this logo. So in this one, I would say, you know, show on mobile devices only. But maybe for my desktop version, I have one like this, or I have the logo here. But I don't want it to just show up on mobile. I want it to show up on only on desktop. This whole thing only on desktop. Okay, because let's say I want to add some navigation text here. Let's pretend these are links. This, you know, I may not want all the stuff on my mobile version. So this will only show up in desktop and this will show up on the mobile. So you won't see both. You'll see one or the other depending on where you're looking. That's how that works. So also in display options, this is pretty important. Sometimes images look ridiculous when they get blown up to fill the size of a small screen. They can still be larger than you want them to. So if I didn't want this image to fill the full width of my phone, I could say preserve and it would still stay relative to this size and not too big. And when you have columns, if you don't want them to stack on smaller screens, you can say don't stack and it'll keep it side by side. But make sure you test so that that is a good option for you. And then in certain templates, you do have control of your email with. This one is a predefined template that I selected, so you don't get to change that.